Hi, everybody. We should be on just in a minute or so. Hope everybody's doing good tonight. Give me 1 second. It's been a couple of weeks since I've been on here, so I kind of lost track of what to do. Okay, here we go. Okay, hi, everybody. Glad to see I have a couple of people here. And Richard, good to see you here. I have a couple other people there too. Not too many here tonight. As we know, it is the long weekend, so I don't expect a lot of people to show up here tonight, but we'll see how it goes. Couple things going on. I got a lot of stuff that I got here in the mail from a lot of my different companies that I deal with. So I have a couple things that we're going to take a look through. Actually, we'll open them up together and we'll see what they are. I haven't used any of them yet, except one of them. One of them you're gonna know right away as soon as I show it to you that it is something that I've had before, that I still have, and I use this item all the time down at the shop. So we are gonna take a look at a couple things here. You're gonna see something here too that one of these companies sent to me, which I can't use it in the shop. But it looks pretty neat, so I will show you that as well. I see a couple of people coming on now. We got like a few people here, but hopefully a few more get the message and they show up. Let's see what we got. We got John, we got Joe, we got Ricky, Richard. Good to see everybody. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I've been on. I will talk to everybody about that, what was going on. A couple of you guys already know, but most of you don't really have an idea of what was going on. So we will talk about that once we get a couple of more people here. We'll talk about that. I will say this, it's hot as heck in the shop this time of the year, as you can imagine. You know, we get that heat wave, and, you know, on the weekend we get a little bit of a reprieve. But Monday, I should say Tuesday, it'll be back to normal, back up to the 90s again. We've been actually extremely busy with quite a few different jobs. We've had oil changes, brakes, tires, of course, a lot of air conditioning work as well. So it keeps us pretty busy. But I do have some older footage that I've been going through that I filmed a while back, and I haven't had a chance to just sorry, cleaning my glasses. I haven't had a chance to put them up yet. So I had an opportunity to go through some of my older raw footage and put those up. I'm going to put a couple of them up. Maybe during the week I'll put them up because I did some editing yesterday and today. So I'll throw those up and you can take a look at those. One of them is it was a BMW. I think it was an '06 BMW. We had to change the fan clutch assembly, the fan clutch and the shroud assembly. You know, BMWs are a little different than most of the other cars, but you'll see how that goes in the video. What else did I have? Something else I was working on too. You know, I don't recall offhand, but I'll put them up during the week and we'll see. Let me show you a couple of things that were actually sent to me from a couple of different companies that I deal with. Like I said, I haven't used them at all yet, but you know, we'll see how it goes. Okay. All right. This one is okay. Let's put my tool over there. This is a digital multimeter. It's actually, I don't remember, truthfully, I don't remember much about this. They sent me an email saying that it was on the way to me, and I didn't really do anything with it. But it probably does, let's take a look and see what it looks like inside here. I am not going to test this now, just so you know, but we'll see what it looks like. That's strange. They gave you a screwdriver. I wonder why they did. Now I'm wondering why they gave me a screwdriver to go with a multimeter. Kind of a little bit strange, but there must be a reason for it, I'm assuming. All right. This is actually, sorry I'm doing some of this off the camera, but this is the multimeter. You know, being in the business, We do have the professional tools that we use, but for a do-it-yourselfer, this will actually, this or any other cheaper multimeter will work just as well. You do have to put the batteries in it, of course, which I didn't do, but that's it. So it's good for checking voltage, ohms, resistance. It looks like it'll. Yeah, it does. You can check resistance. You can check your ohms. You can check voltage. It has all of it. It comes with the attachments for the to plug into the pieces down on the bottom here, so you can actually test it. And like I said, I haven't used it, so I don't know the capabilities of it. But you know, I did put a link down below already. They did ask me to put a link into the video. I put a link down there. Take a look at it, see what you think, and you know, if you have a use for it. There's somewhere I did see it's fairly cheap. I think it was under 25, 30 bucks, something like that. It comes with all your other stuff. So I'm just going to put this away, and then I'm going to show you a couple of the other things that were sent to me. But again, I put the link. I put the link to the Amazon store, and that's it. Ohms and resistance. Wow. Okay. This is the other thing that came. This is for you remember a couple of weeks ago, actually it was probably more than a couple of weeks ago, I had a company that actually sent me a motion detector, an outside motion detector. Well, they sent me the light bulbs to go with it as well. These are LEDs, I believe. Yeah, these are LEDs. And I did put a link already down in there, so you can actually take a look and see. I will show you the voltage. It's rated at 27 watts, 35,000 luminance. But that's it. I will not be showing you these working actually on this channel, but a lot of you guys probably know I do have a home channel that I do. So I will probably put this as well as that other the other light onto in my other on my other channel, the Get It Done home repairs. I will put this this light assembly in, and I'm actually really, look at this thing. I never saw nothing like this before. Wow. I'm actually curious how bright this thing is going to be. With all these LEDs around this thing is probably going to be extremely bright. And as you know, these LEDs, when they light up, you don't have that yellowish color light that you would normally get when you have the LEDs. It actually puts off a very white light, so it's a little bit whiter or a little bit brighter. But I will do this on my, that's the specs right here on the side of it too. I will, on my other channel, like I said, the Get It Done home repairs, I will show you the installation. And it's just some stuff they sent me with it as well. I will show you the installation of that. I will show you the installation of the motion detector light. It has two spotlights that are supposed to be going on, but they told me instead of the spotlights, you can use these. So when I put the light on, I'll put it on my other channel, and we'll see how bright this is. I'll show you the installation. I'll show you the lights and how bright they actually are. Like I said, I put the link down below so you can take a look down there and see what's what it looks like on the Amazon store itself. Let's just see who's in over here today. What we got here? We got a couple of people. Let me see who we got here. There's a couple of people I'm looking for here. There was a couple of people sent me the home channel. 95 TTX is what's your home channel. It's a Get It Done home repairs, and you'll see some of the videos I'm doing there as well. And this, as you guys know, Autel is something that I use all the time at work. This one here is a typical scan tool. The one that I have this one at work. I don't know if it's this model. Yeah, it is. Actually, it's this one here. This one I do have at work already. This company I deal with was Banggood. They sent this to me as a just they was something they wanted me to do on the show here to show you guys. The one that I use more frequently than this. These are good if I have to scan a customer's car out in the street and I don't want to bring my Snap-on outside to the street. I'll take this with me, go outside. I can plug into it real quick, and I can find out what the code is, so I can give the. Hey Keith, good to see you. How you doing today? Yeah, we were looking for you, Keith. So this is the other one. The one I use all the time is actually it's also made by Autel, and on the cars with the parking brakes that are actually the electronic parking brakes. I use the Autel all the time to actually retract the parking brake, so I can put the rotors on and put the pads in it, and then you have to preload the caliper, the parking brake, and everything. So the Autel that I use at work, I use that all the time. This one not as much, but it's nice to have it. It is handy to keep in the car, your own car for yourselves. Lon, good to see you there. I didn't think you were going to be here today. Good to see you as well. The home repair channel. Thank you, Joe, for telling everybody about that. That's perfect. My buddy Vinny Lalo is in here. Vinny, I know Vinny for probably just about, I'm going to say 25, maybe more, 25, 30 years, something like that. I know for a long time. My Honda got towed for the first time. Wow. Bad starter. Wow. Okay. Now everybody's probably wondering, and a lot of you guys know already. Can you talk about the calipers? Did they have trouble with that? Lon wants me to talk about the remanufactured calipers. Lon and everybody else out there knows that the remanufactured stuff of years ago is not the same as it used to be. The remanufactured stuff years ago, when you got it and you put it in your car, you didn't have a problem with it. You put it in and it worked perfectly. They had everything that was machined properly. The slide pins, everything worked. If you got a loaded caliper, everything worked perfectly. Today, the way that they're making these remanufactured calipers, they knock them out so quick, and there's such a little margin for them profit-wise that they're cutting back on the quality. It's not like it used to be. We've had a lot of problems already where and I'm sure, Lon, you've probably run into this problem yourself. You'll order a set of calipers and you'll order a left and a right caliper. You get the calipers sent in. I had this happen to me. It was a Kia I was working on, and the special order calipers, I had to order the calipers. The customer needed the car to get home. They live all the way 70, 80 miles away. So I had to put it back together that night so they get back home. I placed the order, get the calipers, get them into the shop. I call the guy up. He brings the car in, take it all apart, put the left side on, put it all together. Everything is perfect. Go over to the right side, pull the right side wheel off, go to take it apart, take the right side caliper out. And what do? They sent me 2 left side calipers. So, and of course, there's nothing you can do. You can't use a left side caliper on a right side car because the bleeder valve is in a different location. The caliper and the mounting bracket is just about the same, but one of them has the bleeder screw on top, and the other one has the bleeder screw on the bottom. So if I took a left side and I put it on the right side, the bleeder screw would be on the bottom, and if the bleeder screw is on the bottom, you can't get the air out of a caliper. And everybody knows if you don't get the air out of a caliper, you're not going to be able to even stop that car, because you're gonna have the liquid of the brake fluid going into the caliper, and you're going to have that air inside there. And air you can compress, so you can compress it pretty tightly. When you have brake fluid in there, brake fluid doesn't compress. When you step on that pedal, that fluid just pushes through, and that's what stops the vehicle. When you have air in there, that air is compressed, so it makes the pedal extremely spongy, or it goes right down to the floor. So to answer Lon's question, remanufactured parts are not like they used to be, and you have to check everything. I've had them already too, where I get a caliper, take it and put it on the car, put the whole thing back together. Now you look at the caliper and it looks absolutely perfect compared to the one that's on there. And you'll take it and put it onto the vehicle, tighten everything up, and the wheel doesn't turn. The problem is a lot of times you look at a bracket and it may look exactly the same. Even though a bracket looks exactly the same, it may be off just that little eighth of an inch. And if you have an eighth of an inch off on a bracket, what happens is the bracket goes around the, like it's left and right side of the bracket, and you have your rotor inside of it like this. What happens is if you have a bracket that's mounted, that the mounting is off just a eighth of an inch, what's going to happen is you may have the outer part of the brake caliper assembly touch into the rotor and keep it from rotating, or you could push it to the right side and it won't rotate either. Karina, good to see you here. Thank you very much. So today, even myself working on cars for 42 plus years, every now and then I do run into a problem where, I'll take a caliper, it looks exactly the same, put it on there, and then sure enough, it just doesn't fit properly. I've had a lot of my subscribers where I get emails from them saying, I understand that I changed the caliper, I changed the rotor, I changed everything, and now the wheels don't turn. And that's usually because there is the wrong mounting bracket. Even though it may look the same, it's off just that little bit. So today you have to be extremely careful and watch everything. The quality control is really horrible. But the problem is a lot of times when you buy a remanufactured caliper, it's going to cost you $75 or $100. But if you want to buy a brand new caliper, you could be looking at $300 or $400. So a lot of times that customers just don't want to go and spend that kind of money. Would I do it on my own car? I wouldn't spend $300 or $400 on a caliper. I would take the gamble and put the caliper back on. So you have to remember is when a caliper goes bad, most of the time a caliper goes bad because what happens is the seal on the side of that piston starts to leak, or the dust boot up around the top of it starts to leak. And once they start to leak, you'll get the fluid coming out, or you'll get dirt going in, or the rubber gets real hard and it'll stay. The piston will push out, and instead of pushing back in, it'll stay applied and it'll cause a drag on the brakes. So that happens frequently. I will tell you this: years ago, when I first started in the business, I'm going to say probably back in the middle to end of the 70s. Back then, you didn't replace a caliper. You used to have a caliper rebuilding kit, and you would take a caliper off to the side and put it on the workbench, and you would just pop the caliper apart. And the way you would take a caliper apart is you would take the caliper, take the bleeder screw out. You would take a piece of wood and stick a piece of wood inside the caliper where the piston will come out on this side over here. You stick a piece of wood inside the caliper there. You put a rag over the top of it, and then you would take your air chuck and you would put the air chuck on it. You would just slowly pressurize that piston, and it would slowly push and push and push until it popped out all the way. That's why you had the rag on it, because if you had fluid in there, brake fluid, and you shot that with the air, brake fluid would be all over the shop. And you guys know brake fluid takes the paint right off the car. Okay, Karina says, keep up the great work. Enjoy a Sunday with Mrs. Jimthecarguy this holiday weekend. That's true, Karina. Thank you very much. But today, well, back then we used to rebuild a caliper. I used to buy a rebuilding kit for like $2. You could buy a rebuilding kit. All it was a rubber seal and a dust boot. That was it, But you can't do that anymore. Today we actually throw them away because if you could get the rebuilding kit, if you could get it, you could do it. But most of the time, it doesn't really pay. Lon says, I had 2 reman calipers lock up when changing brakes. Yeah, I don't really have them where they lock up as much as they when you put them on, they just don't line up correctly, and that will cause the caliper to lock up on the rotor and keep that rotor from rotating. It's actually happened to me. I'm going to say in the last year, twice, maybe 3 times, something like that. So the quality is just it's horrible. So okay. Now, as you guys know, I wasn't here for a couple of weeks. I will tell you this, and a lot of my friends here know this already, that we had my mother was extremely sick, and she passed away 2 weeks ago. So that's why I wasn't here for a couple of weeks leading up to, and then a couple of weeks after it. I will say this: I'm not sure when, but obviously I'm here today. I may, depending on what goes on next week or the week after, it's going to be a hit and miss as far as if I'm going to have the show or not. So, but we'll see how that goes. All right. Get my pen here. There's a couple of things I wanted to ask. A couple other things. I had a couple of people that sent me questions asking me about different things, and I did tell them I would get back to them today. But I do want to talk about another thing, which is actually very common. I've gotten these. I've gotten these phone calls as well as emails, and I'm sure it's happened to other people out there as well. You ever get into a car and you try to get in your car and you try to turn your key? Thank you. When you try to turn, Lon, thank you very much. When you get into the car and you try to turn the key to start the car, and you put the key in the ignition, you turn the key, and the key don't turn. No matter how hard you turn that key, it just won't turn. What happens is, when you park the car and you shut the car off, the key or the lock on the steering column itself, the wheel may be slightly turned to the one side. So when the lock pin is comes out, the lock pin comes out. But what happens when you shut the car off, the wheel may twist back. So what happens is that lock pin gets jammed inside there. When the lock pin is jammed in there and you try to turn the key, you can't pull the lock pin out, so the key doesn't turn all the way. So what you need to do is to grab the key with your right hand, grab the steering wheel with your left hand, obviously the key is in the ignition, put the key in the ignition, hold slight pressure on it. You're not going to really twist it, just try to break it, but you're going to hold slight pressure on the key. You put pressure on the key and you hold the key while turning the key, grab the wheel with your left hand and pull down on the steering wheel, and the key should loosen up. If it don't loosen up by pulling down, then you push up on the steering wheel. And whether you're pushing up or pushing down, that lock pin will pull out, because what happens is you have a space inside there like that. And what happens is your lock pin comes in here like this. You turn the car off, and what happens is that rotates just the steering wheel, rotates just that little bit, and it holds that lock pin from pulling back in. So now you try to turn the key on, and this lock pin won't pull out because this is holding that lock pin in place. By grabbing the wheel with your left hand and moving your left hand up and down, what you're doing is you're allowing that lock pin to center itself in that opening, so that you can turn the key and you can get that lock pin to retract and get the car to start. That's one problem that we have. The other problem we have is I get it from people all the time where they'll call me up and they'll say, now this could be multiple reasons of why this happens. I've had them already where the key will not turn off. You try to turn the key off and it doesn't turn off. You'll try to turn it, the car will shut off, but when you try to turn the key, it doesn't go into the lock position so you can remove the key from the steering column. Now, this is not all the time, because some Fords have a problem inside the steering, the key switch itself, where that goes bad. But in a lot of cases, what happens, if you have the car running, start the car back up, step on the brake pedal, take the shifter, pull the shifter all the way down into low gear, and then you'll take the shifter and you push it firmly up into the park position. Because sometimes what happens, you'll push it up into park and it may not totally go into park. It may just be stuck just a little bit between the reverse and park. And by taking that shifter and jamming it up there at a fairly good, not hard enough to break it, but firmly, you should be able to then turn the key off and get the key out of the ignition. In most cases. Sometimes I've had them already where the ignition switch goes bad, and if the ignition switch goes bad, then no matter what you do, it's not going to turn off. So, but that's two easy problems that you can, that most of the time is fairly easy to correct. All right, let's see what we got going on over here. All right, Lon, Gerald, good to see you, Gerald. I'm glad you're here. Hope everything's well in Texas. Um, can still buy some repair kits. Makes sense once the seal and yep. Sometimes you can still get them. Uh, a lot of times you can get them, but most people don't want to take the chance. I don't want to take the time to rebuild them. Years ago, we never changed calipers. We used to rebuild them all the time. And even back in the day when I started back in the mid 70s, not only do we have the kits to rebuild the calipers, we rebuilt almost every caliper. We used to rebuild the wheel cylinders, and a wheel cylinder is such a simple rebuild. You wouldn't even take the wheel cylinder off the car. You'd leave the wheel cylinder on the car, disassemble the brakes, take everything apart, and you had a very small honing device that you would put in there, and you would hone out that brake wheel cylinder, and you'd hone it out. You'd get in there and you would clean it out with brake fluid. You'd lubricate the seals. You'd put the seals back in with the way it was. You had a seal on the end. You had a spring that would go in here, and then you would have another spring, another seal would go on this side, and then over those two seals there'd be a little aluminum piece that would be on there, and you would push that together. You put the dust seal on the outside, and you could rebuild a wheel cylinder right on the car. Instead of playing around trying to get them apart because the brake lines rust into the back of the caliper, you could actually just take the thing and rebuild it right on the car. But we don't do that anymore. Back in the day, we used to rebuild starters. We used to rebuild alternators. We always did carburetors. You never replaced a carburetor. We used to rebuild them all the time. All right, what else we got going here? Replace a caliper, probably clean it up. It's real important that after you clean up the caliper and you change in the dust seals, you got to make sure even the little most minute piece of dirt can cause a problem where the seal wouldn't seal properly. When I first started in the business, one of these guys who used to do all of the rebuilding, in our shop, he was the carburetor guy. He was the manual transmission rebuilding guy. He did all of the real tedious stuff. And he always used to tell me cleanliness next to godliness. So you would actually have to make sure that everything was spotless before you put it back together, because just that little bit of dirt inside there would wind up causing a failure, especially when you're doing the carburetors. Carburetors, if you didn't get them perfectly clean, you would take a carburetor, you'd rebuild the whole carburetor, put it back together, put it on the car, start the car. It would start up, and while the car is idling, you could actually watch the gasoline coming squirting out through the top of the float. It's the Ventura. It would actually come out through there, and you could watch the gasoline dripping down inside the carburetor, the bore itself, and it would actually flood the car out because that little tiny speck of dirt would get stuck between the needle and seat, and then it would wind up being a problem. So that's why he used to say to me all the time, cleanliness next to godliness. All right, what do you got here? Thanks, Lon. Appreciate it. I'm just reading through some stuff. Steve, okay. John Clark says my 16-year-old daughter just called me with this very problem on her 98 200. Oh, okay. My 16-year-old daughter just called me with the very problem on her 98 200 SX on Saturday. It is, you don't see these older cars, these Nissans, Hondas, and Toyotas. They're still running. Yeah, it was actually it was when my kids were younger. I probably got that phone call at least 2 or 3 times from each one of them about the key not turning like that. So it is very common, and a lot of people don't even think about it. After driving for so many years, you'll actually remember this. You'll get in the car and shut the car off. When you shut the car off, as you turn the car off, you'll see the steering wheel turn just a little bit. So, and that usually is when it happens. But I tell you one thing though, that once that happens to your daughter and she figures out how to do it, it'll never happen again. Some of the kits are still made for it. I remember honing hones for the wheel. So yeah, they were tiny little hones that we used to hone out. It was just like the ones we used to rebuild the engines when you hone out the cylinders, but it was a much smaller version. They were probably like little 3/4 inch or 1 inch little honing wheels, three of them on there. You put it in there and you hone it out, and it would clean out any kind of rust or debris inside there. Living in the Rust Belt, Norway, calipers, pistons corrode, so the seals is by the piston, the seals are the same price manufactured. You're right. What happens is, and the reason a lot of guys started getting away from rebuilding the calipers was they used to be made of metal, and you would actually take them apart to rebuild them. And when you take the piston out of it, the piston would actually be a little bit of rust on the piston, and it would actually cause little pitting on the side of the piston itself. And if you have a piston that's pitted just a little bit, you can't use anything. You can't rebuild it, because once that seal touches that rusty area, it's like taking a seal and running it over sandpaper. It may seal, in the beginning, but within an extremely short period of time, it's going to wind up being destroyed. All right, what else we got here? Heavy truck dealers still rebuild. Yeah, you're right. A lot of the truck dealers, they do still rebuild them, because the cost of a wheel cylinder for a car is $20, maybe $15. But when you start buying these bigger wheel cylinders for trucks, they're a lot more expensive, and they're not really cheap. They really get to be expensive. Bill, good to see you in here. I hope everything is well. Okay, a couple of things we're going to talk about. I did get a few. Now I have pages and pages of emails from people that have had problems. Like I said, I haven't been here in a couple of weeks, but this is one of them that comes to me. It's I did not write their name down. Actually, when I copied and pasted it, I must have omitted their name and not put it in there. This says 2006 Kia Sportage. Well, I did. I wish I remember their name, but I didn't. It's 2006 Kia Sportage. They say, well, I did all of this, but my new pads are touching the rotor. I don't understand what went wrong. I have to give it heck. That's my word. They put another word in there. I have to give it heck to even get the car to roll. And then it's a sad face. This is exactly what we were just talking about a lot of times with the, and I hope they're in here listening to this, but a lot of times what happens, like I was just explaining what Lon said about these calipers, if you change the caliper and you put the caliper on or the rotor on, it may not be the right one. New pads are touching. I don't know if the rotor was replaced too. What I will tell you to do, if it was me doing the job, what I would do is I would take your old brake pads. I don't think you changed the caliper. I'm pretty sure you still have the original caliper in there. But take that rotor, put the rotor, take it off the car, of course. Take your old rotor, put it on the ground or on a workbench. Take your new rotor and put it side by side to that rotor. And they should line up exactly. It shouldn't even be off, not even a 1/16 of an inch. It should be exactly the same, unless there's a lot of rust on there, of course. Then you have to take that into consideration. But to make sure when you have them, face to face on the ground, they line up exactly the same. If that lines up exactly the same, take the rotor, the new rotor, put it over the top of the old rotor, and make sure the diameter is exactly the same diameter. I've seen them already. When you take a rotor and you look at it, and you'll find it's off just a 1/4 of an inch. A 1/4 of an inch is a lot to be off on a rotor, because when you put that caliper back down, that caliper is going to lock that rotor in place, and it's not going to turn. So you want to make sure that the rotor is exactly the same diameter, exactly, and you want to make sure the height is exactly the same. If it is, then you want to look inside the rotors, and you want to make sure that everything inside the rotor itself lines up exactly right. If everything checks out exactly right on the rotor, put it back onto the vehicle, put the rotor back on, take the mounting caliper and put your brake pads into the mounting bracket. Your mounting bracket, those brake pads should slide in there nice and easy. If you have to force those brake pads into that mounting bracket, then two things. Either the mounting bracket itself is extremely rusty and it's not allowing it to move, or the brake pads themselves could be the wrong brake pads. So you make sure you match them up perfectly too. The only way you can correct this problem is you have to take your old stuff from the car and you have to match it up to your new stuff that you got from the car. Because sometimes things may look exactly the same, and just that little bit of an inch, a 16th of an inch, an eighth of an inch, or a quarter of an inch, whatever it's off, it's going to be causing it to bind up. So you just need to check everything again just to make sure that it's exactly right. I have a feeling that you're going to find out that either the rotor is going to be no good, it's the wrong rotor, or you're going to have the wrong brake pads. I will tell you this as well. If you have that mounting bracket off the car, take your brake pad, match it up with your old brake pad. If it looks exactly the same, take that brake pad and put it into the mounting bracket, and make sure that when you have your mounting bracket like this and your brake pad fits into that mounting bracket this way, make sure that you can take that brake pad with your hands and slide it back and forth easy. If you have to put any kind of force on that brake pad to move it back and forth, then there's going to be rust inside that mounting bracket that needs to be removed. So keep me posted. Let me know what you find. But I think you're going to find that either it's going to be the wrong stuff, or okay, I'm sorry, I got a follow-up email from her as well, or him, whoever with the Kia Sportage. But keep me posted. Let me know. And it says here, and then it says, and I know I'll never get anyone to help, but what's weird is the clips that came with the pads weren't the right ones. So I had to use the old clips. Scared to drive the car. Okay. I got a feeling that you're going to have the wrong brake pads. So if the clips didn't fit, then most likely you have the wrong brake pads themselves. So keep me posted. Let me know what you find and how it turns out for you. What else we got here? I do not drive my truck very often. My question is, what is the recommended time frame to change the timing belt when the mileage is not reached? It's going to depend on what year the vehicle is. Most of the time, I always go by the mileage. If it says, say, a Honda, for instance, most Hondas, I think they recommend 105,000 miles. I usually would say to a customer, when you get to that 105 is when you want to replace it. Now, obviously, if the car is 15 years old, you want to change it, but there is no set time frame in years of when to replace it. Usually, it's just in mileage, but it depends on the actual driver. I mean, if you have a car that's 5 years old and you only put on it, 5,000 miles. Then you may think about doing something with that timing belt, because as you know, belts do start to wear, timing belts wear just like a regular fan belts start to wear. 5 years, VW, okay, it could be. Will dirty fluid affect the hydraulic clutch operation? Most of the time, dirty fluid will not affect it. The only thing that may happen is the fluid, if it's dirty, the fluid may, cause the seals to prematurely start to leak, but usually it won't cause anything with the operation. 2000 Tundra, a Toyota Tundra. Yeah, that. How many miles on the Madison? How many miles do you have on that 2000 Tundra? Because that one there, you don't want that to break. If that breaks, you're going to wind up with a problem. I think I don't recall exactly what the interval is. I'm thinking it's probably going to be around 90,000, something like that, but I could be wrong. So you definitely want to, a 2000 has never been done. You definitely want to get that done, because as you know, that's 18 years. That's a long time. Joseph, good to see you. I hope everything is doing well. I'm going to give you a call this week because we have a little catching up to do. I haven't talked to you in a couple of weeks. I got some stuff I want to talk to you about. Okay, we got another question here. This is actually, his name was Jim, and no, I'm wrong. I didn't write this one's name either. Okay, well, anyhow, this is the question. It says, Jim, Nissan quoted me $1,200 to replace the oil pan on a 2010 Nissan Maxima. Are they insane? Can you advise me on how to? Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you if it's a 2010 Nissan Maxima and they quoted you $1,200 to change the oil pan and gasket, obviously, I would get the car and get the heck out of there because that is ridiculous. That labor-wise to change that pan, I think the labor is maybe only about 3 hours, 4 hours tops, and that's only if you have a run into complications. To do that oil pan in a regular shop, I would not do it. I'm sure at the dealership they're probably charging you a crazy amount of money for that pan, but $1,200 is insane. That oil pan, from what I'm recalling, a 2010. I don't even think the crossover has to come off on that. I think the crossover may not even have to come off. But even if the crossover pipe had to come off, what you're going to do is you're going to unbolt it, pull it down, and get it out of the way, and the oil pan falls right out. $1,200 is a crazy, crazy price. Actually, if you could let me know where you're located, because I have a lot of people that I know all over the place, and let me know where you're located. I'm sure that you're going to find a regular repair shop that'll probably do that for $500 probably. I don't think 1,200 is a crazy, ridiculous number. I would get in the car and get the heck out of there because that's insane. Okay, let me just go back over here for a second. Okay, that's 9. I changed it at 90,000 10 years ago. I am concerned. I have driven at 20,000 since then over the last 10 years. Will the timing belts rot? Yes, it will. Timing belts will dry out, just like fan belts will start to dry out. Timing belts don't dry out as quickly as fan belts because they're not exposed to the outside road debris, salt, and all the outside elements that cause belts to prematurely wear. But they changed it at 90,000. And how many miles do you have on it now, Madison? Let me just go back and see. 1,000 Tundra. Okay, I'm not how many. What I'm curious is how many miles you have on the vehicle right now. Do you have? I mean, you changed it in 90 10 years ago, so and you got 2,000. So I'm assuming you got 110,000 miles on it. Yeah, okay, 110,000 miles on it. Would I change it on my own vehicle? No, I wouldn't. I probably would not do it with only 20,000 miles on it. If anything, you may do it at 50,000 miles. Which could be a couple of years down the road. I would not do it myself, but that's personal preference. Okay. This Russ says a '02 Nissan Sentra 1.8 injectors ticking. Yeah, the injectors do tick quite a bit in that engine, and not even that engine. A lot of engines, they have to be extremely loud because working with impact guns all my life, I can't really hear as well as I used to. So a lot of injectors do make a ticking noise. But if they're working properly, you shouldn't have a problem with it. Okay, here we got another subscriber asks, thinking about purchasing a 2001 4Runner. Any thoughts on them? Are they solid cars? Are they solid cars overall? Same question with the 2002 or 2003. Heard the Maximas has a burning oil issue. The whole thing is that are they good cars? Yes, the Maxima is a very good car, and the Pathfinder is a very good car. The problem is that people, again, they can't say all people, most people today don't maintain a car like they should. They don't change the oil like they should. They don't change the transmission fluid. They don't flush out the brake fluid. They don't do a lot of this stuff that should be done to it. And that's usually why a car starts to burn oil. I haven't really seen a lot of oil burning issues with the Nissan Maximas, truthfully. Usually they do not burn oil, but it all depends on how it was maintained. I would say that if you can get a vehicle that was well maintained by the owner, whether it was at a dealership or they just could produce regular maintenance stuff showing you when the oil was changed, when the transmission fluid was changed, when all of the fluids were changed. You should not have a problem with the. They usually are very, very dependable vehicles. Okay, what else we got going on over here? 10 years dry rot. Yeah, dry rotting could definitely be an issue. It is very, very possible. I'm going to agree with you, Gerald. The Tundra is really not a very difficult or very expensive job to do. If that belt was to break while you're driving, you could wipe out the top of the engine. So, like I said, it's personal preference. Would I do it on my own? Probably not. But truthfully, in 10 years, I probably put on my cars, I'm going to say about 200,000 miles. So I do a lot of driving. Okay, this one comes from a Chevy Cruze 2013, an AC problem. My Chevy has been blowing hot air. I recharged the 134A to the edge of the blue line on the gauge in the low pressure gauge, then stopped the canister and disconnected the line from the low pressure at 52 pounds. Well, I'll tell you right off the top of my head, 52 pounds if the compressor is running, 52 pounds is too high on the low side. The car does not engage the clutch on the compressor, so I'm thinking maybe it's stuck, but it spins so easily and fast, it just won't turn on. How can I tell if it's the fuse or not, or what can I do before I take it in? It's hot as heck, and so gotta get it done ASAP. Thanks for taking the time to answer my question. I've seen this quite a few times. What happens is if the Freon is good and the high side has if you have 52 pounds on the low side, that means the compressor is not running. 52 is actually a little bit low, because when the compressor is not running, the high side and the low side should be equal. So what I would do is put a little more pressure inside there first. If you have a low pressure cutoff switch in there, that will keep the compressor from going on. 52 pounds on the low side means you're showing 52 pounds on the high side as well, and that's a little bit too low. I would put a little more pressure inside there, get that pressure up to at least 100 pounds. If you get it up to 100 pounds on the high side and low side, and the compressor still does not go on, then you're going to have to go down by the compressor. Now, being that the clutch is not turning, you're going to need to check this with the car running. So you want to be real careful with your fingers inside there, because I know somebody, and Joe, you know what? Joe will actually remember this too very well, from Joe's Auto Electric, I should say. When you're down underneath there and you're working with the air conditioner, you want to be extremely careful. One slip of what you're doing and you lose your fingers. So you want to get down with the car off. Go up underneath where that plug comes down, where you have the power lead come down into the clutch itself. Back probe it, slide the pin through the back of the wire on both sides of that wire. One on the hot side and one on the ground side. Make sure you slide those two pins in there and bring them back further so that you're nowhere near that clutch. Now you have these two pins sticking out the back. The clutch is over here. Now you can start the vehicle up. Start it up and let it run, and then you're going to come down. You're not going anywhere near the turning engine. You're going to, yeah, remember that, Joe? I remember when you told me about that. That was pretty bad. So your clutch in the front here is moving. Right here is where your plug is going to be for your clutch. And now you put these little extensions on the back. So you're going to be working all the way back over here to check power and grounding. You're not going to be anywhere near that clutch. You're going to turn the compressor on inside the vehicle, and you're going to check on those two wires. You have two wires there. One is going to be power, and the other is going to be ground. Check the one wire with a test light to see if you have power in there. If you do have power in there, go to the next wire and check this wire here. You should have ground in there. If you have power and you have ground going into the clutch, and that clutch does not turn on, the clutch is no good and it has to be replaced. That's an electronic coil inside there. When you turn the power on, you have power and ground. That clutch coil pulls in the outside part of the clutch and engages it, and it actually spins the inside part of the compressor. I got a feeling that that's probably going to be your problem. The clutch is going to be no good, but make sure you're checking power and ground. Now, I will tell you this. If you're on there and you see that you have power in the one wire and you have power in the second wire, that means you're losing the ground someplace. And if you're losing the ground, then the same thing is going to happen. The compressor will not turn on because you need power and ground inside there. So what you would do is you would actually take what I would use is a power probe, and you would see which one is your power lead and which one is your ground. And then the one with the ground, when the vehicle is running, just momentarily turn on the ground with your test light and see if that clutch engages. If it doesn't, then your clutch it's going to be shot. Most likely it is going to be the clutch, and it's going to have to be changed. Okay, what do we got going on over here? I think Joe was talking to Gerald, so we're going to let that go. Thanks for your response. I thought there was something wrong with my car. Russell, I'm not sure which car that was. I know it was one of these, but I do apologize. I didn't write which one of my subscribers sent me these. So, for some reason, I don't have who sent me what question, but I hope that helped you out. Check the AC clutch relay. That's true. The thing you want to do first is you want to go down there and you want to check and see if you have power and ground. If you have power and ground, then you know your relay is working properly. So before you check anything, go down and check it on your compressor just to make sure. Joe's all my okay, you guys are talking there. Safety first, things I learned, stay away from running engines. That's true. You got to be really careful. That's why I said when you're back probing the pins right there, you want to have the engine off while you're putting those two pins in the back of it. That way it'll give you the extension back a little bit further, so you'll be a good 6 or 8 inches away from that turning fan on there. So you want to be real careful with that. But now I'm going to tell you something else. When I was young and I first started back in the 70s, there was speaking of turning things, that's what made me think of this. Back in the day, we used to take a car and you start your car up and you do your tune-up and you race the engine up from under the hood. A big problem we used to have back in those days is that the clutch, the fan blades would actually break. And the fan blades would break. And what we used to do is you go in there and you'd rev the engine up, and a piece of the fan blade would come spinning right out of there, like a bullet coming out of there. So back in those days, we used to do the same thing. Go all the way in the back of the car, close to the master cylinder, and then you would race the throttle up so you were nowhere near that rotating fan up by the engine. So you're right. Turning engines, you got to be real, real careful. Thank you so much for your video and chat, etc. Thank you, DK. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Safe to stay away from running engines. Absolutely. Okay, now we have something else we're gonna talk about. I think we're gonna be running out of time here. What time we got left here? Let's see. Oh boy. I hope I can get this page here done, and then we'll talk about other stuff next week. This one said this is a 2014 Audi. Local dealer wants 2,000 front and back, but then he says something else I'm not going to say. I'm at 93,000 miles. The pads started at 10 millimeters and now show 5 millimeters, waiting for the sensor to sound at 3 millimeters. We should get another 30,000 out of current pads. I will tell you this. And again, I apologize, I don't have a name to go with this, but it's a 2014 Audi. If a dealer tells you it's going to be $2,000 to change the brakes on your car, get in your car and get the heck out of there, and don't even step on the brakes when you take off out of there. Get out of the place, because $2,000 to do a brake job, that's ridiculous. You could very easily pick up these parts at the dealership, pay the dealer price. Now, I will say this. Let me just back up a little bit. Would I use aftermarket parts on an Audi? No. I would definitely get the parts, get the brake pads, get the rotors, get them right from the dealer, because no matter what you put on that car, you're going to have a problem with squeaking, squealing. You'll step on the brake and you'll get a lot of shuddering taking place in there. So use the original factory stuff. $2,000 to do that job is ridiculous. This 2014 Audi, you remember I was telling you about the Autel? You could buy, not this one, but you could buy the Autel tool to actually retract the caliper. I think the tool is $150, and you can retract the caliper. And you could, any shop can do this job for you. If you went to a reputable repair shop and just told them you had an Audi and you want to put the original factory stuff on there, I know that they would take care of it for you. I know I always put those Audi parts on the car. The rotors, they're probably going to cost you about $100 a piece. Audi rotors are not cheap. They're very expensive. And the same thing with brake pads. On a 2014, that's all you're going to need. You're going to need rotors and you're going to need pads all the way around. If you pay more than $700-800 for that job, that's a lot of money. So $2,000, I'd get the heck out of there, and I would not go back to that dealer because that's robbery. And like Lon says here, it's called a stealership. But you know what? This is not even a stealership. $2,000 is a lot of money. I've seen them already where, Volkswagen and Audi are almost the exact same vehicles anyway. And I've seen dealerships come in, with the Volkswagens, and you're looking at maybe about $1,000, and even that is a little bit high. So what I would do is I would talk to a reputable shop, somebody who's been around a long time. Don't go to like a fly-by-night guy. Find a reputable shop that's been around for an extended period of time. Go in and talk to the owner and tell him, listen, I have a 2014 Audi and I want to replace the brake pads, but I want to use the factory stuff. I'm sure if he's a decent guy, he'll tell you the same thing that any decent or any competent mechanic will tell you. Get the parts, or I'll get the parts and I'll do the job for you. So I hope that helps you out. $2,000, that's robbery. I would never, ever do something like that. Okay, here we go. 2008 Toyota Camry. Can I remove the rear sway bar links nuts? Can I remove the rear sway bar link bottom nut without a lift? Yes, you can. When you do the sway bars, it makes it a little bit easier having it up on the lift because obviously you can go underneath there a little bit. But yes, you can take those bolts out with with just the car still on the ground. I will tell you this too, is when you do try to remove those links on there, it is going to be a little difficult. You may have to unbolt the sway bar and loosen the sway bar up, which is no big deal because the sway bar is only held in with two 12-millimeter bolts on either side. You loosen up those two 12-millimeter bolts, and now that sway bar will move nice and easy. So to answer your question, yes, you can do it on the ground, and no, it will not interfere with anything. It'll actually it'll be perfect. You can do it on the ground. A little tighter, but you can definitely do it. Okay, this is my next question. What does it cost? Why does it cost so much to drop an alternator in a 2001 Seville compared to a 2003 Toyota Corolla? Was quoted $400 just for labor at a shop. At the shop I frequent, same job on my Corolla in '84. Safe to say, Seville is sitting in the garage. I will tell you, the Corolla and the Seville are totally different vehicles. The Seville, it is really a pain in the rear end to get that alternator out of there. What I used to tell my customers too is, don't put a remanufactured alternator in there. We're going to go with the AC Delco. We're going to put the AC Delco in because the labor is so expensive. What happens is your alternator is all the way up in the front on this side of the engine. Now, to get that alternator out, you look down, there's no way. You can't get this much room. The alternator is this big, and you have this much room. There's no way you can get that alternator out of there. So what you got to do is you actually have to remove everything where the air filter box is. You have to take the fan shrouds off, take the fan shrouds out, take the air filter box out, drop the alternator off on the one side, and then you have to take the alternator and bring it across, all the way across to the other side of the car so you can lift it up and take it out where your fan shrouds used to be and where your air filter box used to be. So yes, there is a lot of labor involved with that. And truthfully, $400, that's probably a pretty decent price because there is a lot of labor with that. That's why I used to always tell my customers, strictly go with the AC Delco. All right. All right, I think we're going to have to call it night because we're running out of time here. It's after 8 o'clock already. Last one, and then we're gonna call it night. It says, "Hi, can you tell me on a 2012 Hyundai Sonata rear brakes, can you just change the brake pads without changing the rotors and going through all of this if the brake pads are just low, not into the rotor?" Um, 2012 Sonata, and people are probably saying, "Well, that's an easy job." No, the Sonata is not an easy job. The problem with a Sonata is that a Sonata, to get off the caliper mounting bracket, you need to take out those two bolts that hold the mounting bracket in place. And if you want, check it out. You'll see on one of my videos how much work is actually involved with that. What you need to do is you need to the mounting bracket is on there. You need to get to this bolt and this bolt. The problem is with this bolt, you have one of the rear suspension bars that go right here up against it, where you can't get this bolt out because it hits right into that sway bar or the part of the rear suspension. So what you need to do is you need to unbolt the rear suspension, pull it down and out of the way, so you can unscrew that nut and pull it out. So it is a lot of work involved with it. I will say this though, if the rotor is rusty, or if the rotor has rust on it, or is a little bit of like a rust slip, or a little bit irregular, or a little scuff marks on it, don't waste your time in not changing it. What I would recommend is if the rotor is not absolutely perfect condition, which chances are it's not going to be, I would not do it without changing the rotor. So to answer your question, I would definitely, it looks like a lot of work to get that out of there, but it's really not as bad as you would think. Once you unbolt that piece of the suspension and pull it down and out of the way, it really does come out fairly easy. It's really not that difficult to get to it. So if it was my car or one of my customers, I would absolutely tell them, don't waste your money not changing the rotors, because you may put it all together, take it for a drive, it sounds okay, and you'll hear like a constant, like a type noise as you're driving, because the rotor may be a little bit out of round, and you're going to hear it chirping up against that new brake pad, and you're going to destroy the new brake pad. Take the extra time and change the rotor, and you'll have an absolutely perfect job, and you're not going to have any problems with it. Okay, I am going to call it night here. We're gonna have to continue with the other questions, next week or the week after. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to be here next week. We're going to play it by ear, so we'll see how it goes. Let me just go back here and see what we got going on. I think Joe's talking to somebody here. Okay, Joe's dealing with that. Okay, Lon, I'm going to give you a call sometime this week. I'll give you a call and we'll catch up a little bit. I did see the text from you last week. It's just lots of stuff has been going on, as you can imagine, and I haven't had a chance to get back to you yet. But hopefully this week I'll give you a call and we can catch up a little bit and see what you're up to, and I'll bring you up to speed with a couple other things going on. But that's it. I think we're all done here tonight. All right. So anybody has any questions, send me an email. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can on air. A lot of times for me to read the questions over here and answer the questions a little difficult, because it's a little bit difficult to read here and actually go through it. So yeah, Joe, I'm going to give you a call too. That's actually why I said I wanted to give you a call this week to talk to you. Joe, good night. Hope you were doing good. And let's see, I appreciate it. Okay, we'll give you a call. Okay. All right. Well, I just want to tell everybody thank you for stopping by tonight and spending some of your holiday weekend here with me. But I think I'm going to pack it in tonight, and I will try to keep you posted during the week put something up on, if I'm going to do a live stream next week, I'll put it up here. If I'm not going to put it up, I'll put it up like I did last time where, the live stream is going to be up, and then I'll put on there that the live stream is canceled so you know. But it's going to depend on what kind of stuff I'm doing at the time. As you can imagine, there's lots of things going on. And one thing I will say this. I'm gonna, as soon as I get a chance, I'm gonna show you guys how these light bulbs work. On my other channel, I'm gonna put that up there. Check it out if you haven't checked my other channel out yet. It's Get It Done Home Repairs. And I've been doing a couple of videos here and there and throwing them up there. I think I have like 20, 25 videos up now. So check it out. Subscribe to the other channel, and hopefully I can see everybody I see over here. Over at my new channel, I'm going to watch to see if my subscriptions go up. And Joe from Joe's Auto, check it out. I didn't see you over there yet. It's Get It Done Home Repairs. So I want to see you on my subscribe list there, Joe. Okay, all right. I just want to thank everybody again for stopping by, and we'll talk next week or the week after, but we'll see. All right. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.